Hi everyone, definitely time for a Thread Thursday, a belated Thread Thursday in fact. Now I've had this piece sitting around and I had just tacked it with the black, and I may or may not have shown everyone, and the back of it is just two ends of two, well, you know, like large doilies, the ones that go on dressing tables, that sort of thing. So I've had these pieces of a variety of materials. Some were from Lisa Matic, some were from Spotlight, some were from eBay, and scraps that I have. So I've had them tacked down. So I've started to use a white thread, just this one. It's relatively thick, to do some variety of stitches. So I've got straight stitches, I've got crosses, I've got shaped blanket stitches, I've got lines, and I'm still going around this one, but I just decided that I've sewn all these parts together so I can start to take this out, the tacking out. I'm not quite sure why at the time I did black, probably just so as it was really obvious and I knew I wanted to take it out. At the moment I'm going backwards and forwards between my house and the house where I'm looking after a cute little cat, and so I thought, what better opportunity than right now to have a go at seeing what it would be like to work elsewhere and out of home by bringing things there to do some work at night, and here, back here, to do some work at home. And of course it's obviously a little bit disjointed, but anyway, it's a good experience. See how it feels, what it's like. Alright, that's the last of it. Done, taken out. Right, now this part I'm going to continue around here, and my aim is to get to the middle and have this completely filled up. Just finishing this middle bit. Okay, so this is it so far. Now this is really a project I've just been doing as play. It's experimental, see what happens if I do this, how do those colours work together, all of that sort of thing, and how many stitches can I put in that are out of the same thread but all are very different. So we've got a variegated blanket stitch, and we've got running stitch, and then we've got these little stitches that go like this, and stitches that are crosses, and this sort of stitch that makes it look very quilted. And I now think that what I want to do is bring in some other threads and start to put some patterning through some of these areas. Maybe a bit of seed stitch, a bit of bullion knot, some French knots, and I'm going to use different thicknesses, I think, to have a variety. So I think I want to still keep a little bit with this, the white, but I might also bring in a very pale off-white. That's sort of another, these varying shades. Got a grey here. Not quite sure if these greys are going to work. I'm not sure. I think that's okay with this background. Maybe this is a bit too strong and contrasty for what I want to do. Could add a bit of this gold that will enhance these golder areas. I think maybe a tiny bit of one of these coppery colours possibly. Not quite sure, not convinced. Maybe this one will be alright. These two. So we've got a white, off-white to a sort of a pale greeny grey, a bit more of a bluey grey, a mustard colour almost, a rusty orange. What else could we put in with these? Something in between. So I think this might be my palette. I also have a little pot of bits that I'm hoping to put on as well in different spots. So I'm kind of making a little like a little stash, so it's easier to take to and from over the next day or two. Some of these I think they're too big. I've got a lot of these little pots that I can just pick and choose from, so something like that might work on there. I don't think I want any more than that. So that will make maybe 2 swatches over the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think I want more than that. So that's the end of that. Okay, well, all right, well, so we've got a start for a Thread Thursday, so that's good. We've done that. All right, I haven't done the stitch wheel for quite a while, as I haven't done a Thread Thursday either. And what I'm noticing is I've doubled up. So I had done my stitches, so I had these over here, raised stem stitch and stem stitch with an outline stitch, and for some reason I must have thought I hadn't done it and got confused, and I did them again. So I'm going to unpick this and I'm going to start over here. So the next one is couching, and then it's trailing, which is couching. So I believe from what Kathy says that couching is when you come back in the same hole when you're going over your thread, and trailing is when you are coming next to each other. So I'm going to attempt to make this my little trailing and this my little couching. Right, so I've got a brown to be my stitch that I'm going to couch over, and I've done a contrasting colour. Now this is the way that Kathy's doing it. We're coming back in the same hole as that yellow, and we're just holding our thread. So we've begun to couch it down. Now if we move it up out of the way, I might do them about 1/4 of an inch apart. When I move this thread down, I'll be able to see how to come back in the same hole and pull it firm. So I'm really splitting my little blue drawn line, moving the thread out of the way and coming back down in the same hole. I'm just going to continue that all the way along till I get to the end. Now I'm just finishing up the second last one. And on this last one, when I come to the back, I'm going to secure my yellow thread down. Tie it off and rethread my brown and bring that to the back and tie that off too. Couching stitch can be as far away as you like it. I was just doing some research and Amina from stitchfloral.com, I think, has some good ideas about what the difference between trailing is. Trailing is you're going either side and so I've laid down 2, a yellow and a green, to have a slightly thicker because I'm making a stem for this bud, and then you're just coming up right next to it and down the other side. So it's actually creating, you're not really seeing what's underneath, you're just seeing a row of little stitches over the top. So that's the idea of trailing. I think that I've got that little bit of yellow in, so I do actually like the idea of it showing. But it's adding a little bit of depth, isn't it? So I like the way that Amina calls it excessive couching. That's quite a good one. I'll put her link below because I've found her blog to be very beneficial at times, very nicely explained, and she does a lot of fine work, very fine work, beautiful work. So this is basically what trailing is, excessive couching. So I'm going to complete this down to here and then cast off. Now the next one we're doing is chain stitch. So I'm going to do it in this same little area. And we have done chain stitch before for, I think it was this one for lazy. We used it as a lazy daisy type of one. So coming down a stitch away, but not bringing that whole loop through, coming back same spot to create a chain. This is the start. Wibbly wobbly for the start. This one should be better. So we're coming up a stitch away, back into the previous hole, coming up a stitch away, making sure that this is under. So it's creating a chain. So same right to the end, just so long as this loop stays under. So just to simplify it, we're not letting this thread come through, we're coming up. Then what we're doing is going back down in the same hole, coming up again, making sure that that thread is under, and it creates a chain. And then we can just go through on the outside of that last one to secure it down. So if we do single ones, and secure them down, come back to the centre, try to make the chain the same size. Come back to the centre. Secure on the outer edge. Back to the centre. One more. Then that chain stitch is what creates what is also called a lazy daisy. Okay, so that's it for the stitch wheel for this Thread Thursday. We've got a couching stitch with the stitch over the top further apart. We've got trailing, which is a couching stitch, but you're putting the thread very close together. We've got a chain stitch, and we've got the lazy daisy that's made from individual chain stitches. Okay, I'm back, and it's the next day, and I took all this back to the other little house, and with my stitch wheel I have taken out those original from episode 24 and sorted out what went wrong. I just must have forgotten that I did those and went straight ahead and did these and did the same one twice, so that was a bit silly, but I preferred these, so I took these ones out. Anyway, this is how it's looking so far. And you know what I love about it? I love that there's these 3D elements. Even the French knots I've done really loose. Drizzle stitch, this beautiful, the velvet. Oh, just the 3D elements are fabulous. What about these little cup ones? Okay, moving along. So last night I took this and I started to have a play, and I've put on my bits of material and I've added 4 of these, and then I've realised that I have made a big boo-boo, and this is upside down 1/2, and it's all now stitched down, so I've just decided to let it go. And what I thought was, this is a book I'm going to do, and I'm thinking that it's actually the perfect size as a cover. So there you go. I'm going to do the next Stitchery, Roxy's Stitchery, Winter Journal or Christmas Journal, whatever it's going to end up being. How's that? It's perfect. I love doing that. I love doing these little improvisational pieces, not knowing what they're going to be used for. And then all of a sudden, there's a use. Wonderful. So aside from stitching on these, realising this looked like a front cover and a back cover, I've done 3 bullion knots here. And that's where I'm up to with this. So I'm probably going to just continue stitching some things on here and come back. So I'm just doing a very thin, fine picot stitch through these straight stitches. And because the stitches are very long and far apart, they're quite a flattish sort of stitch. At least that's the aim. As with hand stitching, these are not particularly uniform, so the picots will not be uniform. Just casting off the last little one here. I was running out of thread. Okay, so even though they've started out quite wide and tall and ended up coming down to be smaller and narrower, I don't mind. It's just that's an individual hand stitch look. Right, I think I have to do a little bit of work of getting down some of these little edges. And I'm going to continue on with this idea. I want to bring in a bit of colour with picot stitch and maybe some other ideas. But for now, that's Thread Thursday for this week. And I'll come back next week and do a bit more with this. And then it would lead into the Roxy's second half of the year Journal of Stitchery. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great week. Bye for now.